button.
Yes.
Welcome to your awakening. Please stay calm as your reality is adjusted.
Press the button. Good morning, Global Gulag. Or good evening, good afternoon, good day, good morning. Get back to that screen. Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of music earlier and watching videos of the what is it, Michael Gates, maybe. Wake yourself up, as Jeff usually shouts. Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to another edition of Soul Excalibre on this Moonday evening. Yeah, it's a branding stuff, like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. If you haven't noticed, if you're unaware, this channel is not monetized. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not trying to sell you a book or a DVD or whatever, or t-shirts or mugs. I'll sell you a mug. Might be coffee still in it. Nothing for sale here. I will get back to that point later on. So I'll have a little rant about that kind of stuff. But first of all, welcome back again. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for joining in. Reality Chatters Peter's channel. And Cro-Magnon, hello. Yes, you're actually catching it live for once. And The Rebel, hello. And Stewie, hello. Dave Iron, hello, welcome. And you know me, hello. And Neo Dog, hello. John T.I., hello, thanks for the link. I'll mention that in a bit. Super Leads, hello. And Authentic Human Programming, hello. And Dino, hello, Dean. I'm doing well, right? I'll try and check back in on the chat as we go. I know I'm terrible for it. I have a habit of looking at it at the beginning and then looking at it at the end. But I will try and keep checking into the chat as we go. Michael Allen, hello. Thanks to everyone joining in the chat, even if you're just saying hello or whatever, that's cool. And I will get my notes organised. And I've got a couple of other bits as well I've got to get sorted, because there's a couple of other things I want to screen share. Let me click the button. I think I've sort of made this point so many times now over the years. Silver Streamist, hello, thanks for joining in. Yeah, just a little picture I put together several years ago. It's the classic picture, the war recruiting picture from the First World War, where it says, "Your country needs you," with him pointing at you accusingly. But I just added in red lettering the word fear behind the word you. So it's trying to make the point that your country needs you in fear, needs fear in you. That's what helps to define a nation state, a country, because you have fear of outsiders, fear of the enemy, fear of the other. So you build an imaginary fence around a geographical area and call it a country. And anybody that comes from outside of that geographical fence is the enemy, possibly, potentially. You can ally with them for a while and then stab them in the back later. That seems to have been the habit over the millennia. But yeah, your country needs you in fear, needs fear in you. In the subtitle tonight, I mentioned this on the little broadcast I did on Saturday. I put in the subtitle tonight, the fear vaccine? Question mark. Is it the fear vaccine? Is there a fear vaccine or hopium? The fear vaccine or hopium? There seems to be a lot of that going around at the moment. Get back to that screen. The Rebel, hello. I've just seen you in the chat room. Okay, other things I want to screen share. Yeah, the war theme will probably crop up again and again and again. On the thumbnail I use the holding the thumbnail on the broadcasts, and it's on the top of my channel page as well. He's from a rally in Germany back at that well, not the First World War, the Second World War, back in the 30s. And it's deliberately chosen because it's a perfect example of the individual and the collective. It's partly making an additional point about the Nazi regime and all that rise of fascism and the Second World War and stuff like that. But primarily the point I tried to get across with that image is the individual and the collective. They're not separate. There's a balance between the two. And the guy standing there with his arms folded, so I don't like this is shit. I don't believe this. Yeah, it really makes the point very clearly, visually. An image can tell 1,000 words. So, yes, it'll all be over by Christmas 2099. That's spot on, Ronnie. You enjoying your lockdown? You enjoying your house arrest? You're in this new fascist regime. We all live in a fascist regime. You know, calling it fascism, as I've seen quite a few people call it communism. It's neither, really, when it comes down to it. It's not communism and it's not fascism. It's both. Because when you go to either direction on that left-right spectrum of the political bullshit game, it's actually a circle. Because when it comes down to it, it's the real dichotomy is freedom and authoritarianism, freedom and dictatorship. So whether that dictatorship is from the left-leaning ideology that claims they want to share everything with everyone and make everybody equal, the only way they can do that is by forcing everybody to go along with it. So it ends up being a tyrannical dictatorship, and exactly the same if you go to the right, because they just use state and business and financial power to force people to go along with the dictatorship. So the two join together and you end up with a tyrannical dictatorship. So it's not communism, it's not fascism. The new technocratic tyranny that is coming, that is emerging now, that is beginning and has been for the last however many months plus years previous, the new technocratic tyranny is neither communism nor fascism. You have to get out of that thinking, that left-right thinking that the system wants you to be in, because then that is hopium. They want you to think that, oh, well, if this is communism, then I'll go the other way to the right and I'll vote for all the people on the right and we'll end up with a nationalistic government and then there won't be any tyranny. Wrong, it'll still be more tyranny. And the opposite way works just the same. You know, if you think this is fascism, so you think, oh, we better go the other way and have bigger government and make everybody equal so that there's no financial differences and stuff like that, you end up back in the same place. The only way they could enact what they called communism was by force of arms. You know, Stalin killed multiple millions of people. And what they had in Russia was not communism, it was dictatorship. It was a tyranny enforced through weaponry, enforced through killing people. And exactly the same with fascism. Fascism is just better at disguising it by pretending that they're selling you something that you want, but they've actually tricked you into thinking you want it, or they've structured the environment in such a way that you have no other choice. So you end up having to buy it anyway because you can't get those resources from anywhere else. So you're in exactly the same place. Round and round and round it goes in that left, right, making you feel like you have some possible hope of changing the situation. Whereas in reality, it's just the same old shit from a different set of comedians wearing different costumes. Let's do another quick screen share for that point. This is a bit of an old one. A lot of them are older. The images I've collected over the years. The March of Tyranny. Oh, next time I'll vote Republican. Oh, next time I'll vote Democrat. And on the march goes. Because you just keep swapping sides, and the Hegelian process, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, you keep jumping from one side to the other thinking you're going to have a chance of changing something, and that jumping process from that oscillation from one side to the other creates the movement like a snake across the sand. That oscillation is what they rely on. So they want people to be in that left-right thinking of, oh, it's communism, oh, it's fascism, oh, I'm going to be against the other side, and everything's the fault of the other side. Blame the others. Krishna, hello in the chat room. Thanks for joining in, right? And I'm sure I saw, Timepiece Collector, hello. What about Cuba? I'm not sure on that. Maybe they got close to what could be called genuine communism. It's a bit of an ideological debate, really, isn't it? But they're not exactly doing that well for themselves in the long run. A lot of the population anyway, and there is a level of tyranny to force them to go along with things. I don't know. I think communism looks great on paper. Communism would work really well in a computer as a program, because there isn't enough variance in the variable, so you always get a consistent result. So then, you can sort of make it work. But whenever you introduce people are people are not infallible. People have their problems personally, and that individual effect ripples out into the collective. So even if a few people want to share and get along and do the kind of communist thing, there'll be a few people that don't, and that contradiction causes it to never be applicable to the whole. To the concept of trying to have a communistic nation doesn't really work. You end up with people like Stalin and Lenin who just want to dominate others and make lists of who they don't like. It's typical of most dictators. They end up writing lists. I remember Gary always mentioned that. I wonder if Bojo's got his list now. So what is the fear vaccine? Is it a fear vaccine? I mentioned on Saturday there are groups out there that have over the years attempted to, well, they've certainly investigated, they've experimented and researched into the possibility of creating vaccines to deal with things such as, that's going weirdy flickery, preventing people from having religious thoughts or religious inclinations and beliefs. A vaccine against religion, basically. They've also looked at things like vaccines to prevent hatred, racial hatred, and stuff like that. The system, and certainly Big Pharma, would be very much interested in having something that they can sell people that's like a magic pill. They like convincing people they have magic pills that suits everyone, but there cannot be a universal panacea. Again, back to the individual and the variance amongst people. People are a complete, from one end of the spectrum to the other. You'll find people in all different positions and attitudes in life. But I put this together earlier after listening to Bojo's speech yesterday and seeing some of the updates today on the news media about they've tried to make some clarifications to explain what he meant when he made his little dictator's announcement about what we can and can't do, allegedly. And they've come up with this new catchphrase. The previous one was about stay indoors and protect the NHS and save lives. and the new one was stay aware, control the virus, save lives. And I just saw, stay afraid really is what you mean when you say stay aware, because they only want you to be aware of the information that they want to put in front of you, which is primarily about making you afraid. So stay afraid and control the virus. They're not talking about being able to prevent the illness or deal with the supposed virus pathogen, etc. No, they're talking about controlling the world through that virus, because that is a major part of what's going on here. They're using the virus and the fear of getting ill and potentially dying to control what people are doing, control what people are thinking. From thought to action, and action builds the world we live in and share with each other. So you control people's thinking, you control the world they build. They're trying to build their Babylon, so they're scaring the shit out of the majority of the population to go along with that idea, even though they're unaware of what is being constructed around them. And I put, instead of save lives, I put save papayas. Because if you've seen the update from the president of Tanzania, he's mentioned about how they did some of the CV tests on various things, including a goat and a pawpaw, which, pawpaw and papaya, it's an interchangeable name for the same fruit. Some places call it papaya, some places call it pawpaw. And they've tested other things as well, like even engine oil, and got positive results back from it. So, if they're claiming that by following the instructions you're going to save lives, then we're saving papayas as well, then, aren't we? Because look, even papayas have got the virus, according to their test bullshit. But the other thing it reminded me of, because I was looking at it thinking, they keep doing this kind of like 3-part statement. Like the stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. The new one, stay aware, control the virus, blah, blah, blah. They keep doing this kind of like 3-part statement, mantra that they're giving to people. The magic number 3 again. But the main thing it made me think of is the classic, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. We say no to the virus. We don't want the virus. Begone, virus. Ignorance is strength. It just, maybe it's just me, but it did seem interesting. Why do they keep using this kind of like 3-part element? Maybe there's something to that, but as part of this sort of disguised indoctrination, initiation, ceremonial process that they've been going through. I'll come back to mentioning something about that later on. But I'm often having a bit of a laugh, a joke. I'm doing it from a kind of cynical point of view. Trying to find the other bit that I wanted to share. Screen share, just to make a point. I saw somebody posted this as a comment under one of Jeff C's videos last week, I think it was. And I thought, thank you very much. That's a good comment, a good quote to remember. So I grabbed a copy of it, and it's doing the flickery thing again. And I thought I'll put that up. Quote, he who is not angry when there is just cause for anger is immoral. Why? Because anger looks to the good of justice. And if you can live amid injustice without anger, you are immoral as well as unjust. Unquote. That's from St. Thomas Aquinas, who I'm sure, for maybe some Christians out there, they're aware of him. He was a Christian philosopher and theologian. I've known about him for a long time from the philosophic point of view. Read some of his stuff from that interest, that academic interest of philosophy. But it's very relevant at the moment. But what do you do with the anger? Is anger the vaccine for fear? in many situations it can be. Yeah. Why does your biology, why do both your brain chemical biology, your biochemistry, but the whole of your body, because it's initiated by the glandular system from your brain, from the information going through your brain, why does your body react with all that testosterone and energy when you're faced with something that makes you afraid? So that you have a higher chance of survival. You need all that extra energy so that you can get out of a bad situation or fight your way out or kill the beast, whatever it is, the bear, the wolf, the thing with big pointy teeth, the killer rabbit. So anger is not something to be removed. It's not a good idea to remove anger or ignore it or just try and, push it down, don't get angry. Oh, no, got to be calm. There's something to be said to the controlling your emotional response so that you can make use of the energy that anger gives you and direct that energy into something useful, like saving your own life, and not letting the energy that is anger become uncontrolled, unusable, misspent, or initiated for no genuine good reason. One of the classic cliches, I think, that's been perpetrated across the world for 6 decades, maybe. I think, I'm not 100% sure when he said it, maybe 5 decades, certainly. Was it the 50s or the 60s when he said, whatever, multiple decades. But the classic quote of, "We've nothing to fear but fear itself." And I can remember years ago, I used to say, it's one of those good quotes, don't be afraid, get on with stuff, work through the fear. But I think a lot of people have taken it on board in a kind of misconstrued fashion. Or maybe it's been deliberately misinterpreted for the public so that they take it on board as this idea that you just ignore fear. Fear is not, again, it's not something that you want to get rid of. I'm not suggesting that means we need to be constantly subjected to fear like the government is doing at the moment, like they're doing across the world, trying to terrorize people with a fear of this invisible enemy, this phantasm. But fear is part of what makes you what you are. It's part of our being. It's part of this experience of this reality, and it serves a purpose. Fear is what initiates that response of you could be in danger, you could be at risk. So you need to address what is it that is initiating the fear, and do you need to deal with it? Do you need to run the other way before the killer rabbit gets you with his big pointy teeth? Or do you need to see it for what it is, false evidence appearing real, and negate that fear through addressing what it was that initiated that fear in the first place? Discerning it as a genuine danger or just something that took you by surprise and made you go, oh, hang on a minute, what's that? Because maybe you hadn't seen it before. An interesting little part of that is on the spectrum of light. The majority of the middle of the spectrum is green, and there are more shades of green than there are any other color. And we have learned our biology and our thinking, we have learned to discern more gradation of green than any other color. Why? Because as we were growing on this planet, the planet has a lot of green on it. So to discern a potential threat hidden in the woods, in the wilderness, in the jungle, foliage, etc., you're seeing the differences in that gradation of green. And then, of course, you got the blue at one end of the spectrum and the red at the other, and the Masonic system of occultic manipulation of the Hegelian left-right process. Why do you think the political parties are blue and red? I know there's some that are different, like here in the UK, we used to have the other parties that were yellow and whatever. But blue and red is the main thing. Why do you think that is? It's because it's the opposite ends of the light spectrum. Blue is the cold colours because it's the slower part of the light spectrum, the longer waves. Red is the fast, the hot, the high wave count. Why is it hot? Because the more you agitate that wave, the more you create friction heat. So therefore you create heat, microwave, etc. Don't mention the fifth letter plus the, what is it, seventh letter? Yeah, the fifth and the seventh letter. 57. Oh, curious, that, isn't it? There's other places where that number turns up, the 57, but that's another occultic, esoteric side tunnel if you want to look into that stuff for yourself. But yeah, I thought it's a good quote from Thomas Aquinas. If you're not angry at a lot of the stuff that's going on at the moment, then I wonder whether you're actually a balanced being. A lot of the people who get caught up in what I call the New Age church, they have this idea that they can be in a little bubble of delusion where they have no fear and everything's always happy and everything's always high energy, loveliness, everything's perfect, we're all great, everything's fantastic. And it's like, mate, don't you see all these people dying? No, I don't need to see that negative shit, man. Don't bring me down. What? You're not really balanced, are you? Reality is not one or the other. So how does that help you by ignoring your own anger? As I mentioned, it's making use of that energy that you are given. Is it valid? Is it useful? Can you apply it in some fashion to deal with the danger? And as he states, you're not really a moral being if you're not getting angry at injustice. I think it was Plato said, justice is the highest virtue. Might have been Aristotle, I'm not sure on that quote. It's either Aristotle or Plato, but yeah, justice is the highest virtue. But anyway, the other one I wanted to mention, I've been dropping this on a lot of videos recently. Quote from Voltaire, quote, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities, unquote. If you can't see, or if you're having difficulty discerning the real danger of a lot of what is happening at the moment, then I ask you to apply some logic and rational thinking processes to questions such as, well, if they're telling us the social distance, keep the 6 feet apart from each other because this virus is so deadly dangerous and it's, could easily be spread and kill people and you could kill granny and stuff like that. If that is what they're saying about, be afraid of the being too close to people, why are all the police walking around almost holding hands? Why are all the politicians, or a lot of them, I know they've changed a lot of that media optics recently, but a lot of them they aren't social distancing. So if this thing is really as dangerous as they claim, why are they demonstrating this hypocrisy that they're just ignoring that danger? Why did Neil Ferguson, the guy whose crappy computer model was used to terrorize the whole world, meeting up with his girlfriend, a married woman who would then, after traveling all the way across London to meet him and shag him, she'd then travel all the way back again to her family, to her husband and her children. So is that social distancing? It doesn't seem to add up to me. And there's so many more inconsistencies in the story of the whole situation that if you start asking some simple questions and work your way through them logically, apply some rationality to it, those inconsistencies, those hypocrisies, those failures will start to emerge. And then you have to ask, well, all this shit they're putting out on the media, they're asking me to believe absurdities because by applying my cognitive abilities to the situation, the evidence available to me, what they're telling me adds up to an absurdity. They're preaching absurdities at the public. And, if they can get the public to believe absurdities, then they can get you to go along with or commit atrocities. Voltaire, one thing I really liked about Voltaire, he had a great way of being very concise, to the point of the principle that he's describing. Yeah, it says it quite clearly there, quite concisely. Yeah? It's not a long sentence. So, the fear vaccine. Part of the claimed principle of how vaccines work is that they give you a little bit of the illness in the injection or in an oral form. I can remember when I was a kid, they used to hand them out on sugar cubes. You know, the sugar cube would have a little bit of the whatever in it. They give you a little bit of the illness of the virus or bacteria or whatever it is that they claim is causing the illness, so that your own biology will be initiated, it will be kick-started, and it's your own biology that creates the immunity to the pathogen, to the poison. So are they deliberately giving us a little bit of fear because they want us to become immune to it? I had to ask myself that question, just trying to work my way through the situation, apply some critical thinking, asking questions from both directions, all directions, as many as I could deal with. So I thought, well, are they doing this because they want us to become immune to the fear? Or maybe that's a spillover effect, as they would call it in their think tank descriptions, of the reaction of certain members of the public will see past it, or will have the minerals, they'll have the balls, they'll have the psychological immune system to see the fear for what it is, false evidence appearing real, and go, no, mate, no, no, that's bullshit. That's not a killer rabbit with big pointy teeth. But I come back to if I took just that one question on its own, and I took just this one situation on its own in a vacuum, and applied the two, put that question to the one situation, then maybe, yes, that could be a possible answer of, well, yeah, they're trying to help people be more courageous, or to see past the fear of pathogens, of viruses, of bacteria, etc. Maybe, but you can't, things don't exist in a vacuum. We do not exist in a vacuum. You may not feel things around you, but you are surrounded by a field of other stuff going on. The electromagnetic field all around you, the air around you, the molecules that you cannot visually see or sense. You don't feel them on your skin, but they're there. Nothing exists in a vacuum. You could have a very long debate and argument about whether does the universe itself exist in a vacuum? Does a vacuum even exist other than in a lab where it is deliberately created? That's another question. But get back to the point. I can't ask or apply that question in a vacuum. Certainly not, considering the number of years that I've been interested in a lot of these subjects, and I've looked at information over two to 3 decades now, and it's like, absolutely not. There is a massive stack of evidence and research that amounts to there is no way they're doing it because they want to help people, in the sense of making them more courageous or helping them get past their own fears of certain stuff like viruses, pathogens, blah, blah, blah. No. They're doing this because for them, for the system, fear is useful. Fear is a building tool. They use the fear to build their Babylon. I'll screen share that one image again. So the fear vaccine doesn't come from Big Pharma. The fear vaccine doesn't come from government, doesn't come from authoritarian control freaks that are trying to apply a utilitarian eugenicist ideology onto the entire population of the globe. No. To them, fear is a useful tool to manipulate you, to manipulate people en masse. Attack the individual. The individual is part of a collective. Affect the thinking, affects the actions, affect the environment they build around them. So the fear vaccine, you're not going to find it from them. And as I've sort of pointed at earlier, even if they offered you a vaccine that they claim would get rid of your fear, would vaccinate you against fear, it would not be in your benefit to accept it. And I'm not saying that in some kind of anti-vaxxer sense of, oh, whatever the vaccine is, just don't have it because it's a vaccine. No, just if you comprehend the simple, basic reality of how this experience of reality works, fear is not your enemy. You've nothing to fear but fear itself. Be afraid of fear. How does that work? You can't live through life without ever experiencing fear. That's unrealistic. That doesn't happen unless somebody's got something wrong with them. There are some people in the world that experience that. Their brains just seem to be wired in such a way that they are completely ignorant of fear. And they often get into difficulties or injure themselves because of that lack of fear. They don't see the danger. They don't realize the danger. So they put themselves in stupid amounts of danger because they have no fear. They end up doing things like harassing a stingray until it ends up stabbing them, killing them. I'm thinking of that guy Irving who used to go out in the wilderness and harass animals and reptiles and whatever and go, oh, look at it, look at him, look at him, look at him. He's highly poisonous. Oh, prod, 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 prod. Lo and behold, he got killed. And a large part of the populace followed him and loved him because they thought it was great that he was unafraid of the dangers of what he was doing. And for years, I kept saying to people, this is going to end badly. And you will all go, oh, how terrible. But the reality was you're all a bunch of voyeurs who just wanted to see blood in the water. You wanted to see him get hurt, which is why you were fixated on watching him harass those animals. That was, and to me, that was going back many years now. To me, that was an example of how the media had been turned into blood sport. It had been turned into the new Colosseum. People to tuning into things because they want to see the gore. They want to see the stupidness of people throwing themselves off buildings just to see if they could survive the fall. Whatever stupidness that people could think of. And that works very well for the system. It feeds that fear and it feeds that disassociation from reality. Amplifies the fear of fear itself. Let's get back to my notes. So, yesterday, today's the 11th. I thought they was going to make the announcements on the 11th. Gary, Society of the Spectacle, mentioned that in Spain, they were going to be announcing the easing of the lockdown on the 11th. And he was hoping that he'd be able to have access to a internet cafe so he could get on the computer and come and join in with us again like he usually does. But the fact I haven't seen him online today, I'm guessing that maybe the situation in Spain hasn't exactly changed much. But strangely enough, the UK seems to be in lockstep with what's going on in Spain and other countries. And Bojo turned up on the media yesterday to talk about how they were going to start easing the lockdown. Please note, I did say they wouldn't stop the lockdown. They'd only talk about easing it. And he made this whole spiel about how, well, if we achieve this certain level of this certain thing, then maybe you can be allowed to do this, that, and the other. And bullshit, basically. Kicking the can down the road. The lockdown has not stopped. The only one difference, slight difference, is that now they've admitted they've had to concede the point. I'll get into that. They've had to concede the point that you are allowed to go out as often as you like to exercise. I'm doing lots of bunny ears again. It's a bunny with the big pointy teeth. You're allowed to go out and exercise as much as you want, and you're allowed to sit in the sun now. It's like, oh, thank you, great ruler. Thank you, great ruler. Way, we're allowed out again. Praise the leader. Bojo. I've been going out in the sun all along. Yeah, because the sunlight and the solar radiation that we absorb is part of our biology. We need that solar radiation. It helps keep you healthy. It helps keep a strong immune system. But yeah, that was the only real difference. The rest of the situation has carried on the same. Because please don't be confused. I know they're deliberately putting out mixed messages to create an air of confusion because Ordo ab chaos, they're trying to build their new order out of the chaos of the situation they are creating. So they don't want the general populace to have any certainty. So they've been deliberately confusing and self-contradictory in what the information they're putting out. So he's saying, stay at home and work from home if you can, but if you can't, go to work. So in other words, stay at home and go to work, and go to work but stay at home. Cognitive dissonance, anyone? Now they're saying, oh, if you work in the oh man, that one jumped on me. If you work in the construction trade, you can go back to work now. For most of the people in that kind of trade, the only reason they had to stop work was because their firms, the companies that they're employed by or whatever, were told they had to close down. Otherwise, though, a lot of those people probably would have been going to work anyway, especially, if in a situation where they need to go to work to earn money to buy food, etc. So that hasn't changed. Basically, none of what they said however many weeks ago has changed. They're talking about schools might open again on July the 1st, but only if they follow certain requirements, and they've already started filling the media up with their nudge team manipulation bullshit about how children are going to have to be sprayed down with disinfectant, and they're going to be sat however many feet apart, and there's only going to be a certain number of students per class, and loads of restrictions on how they're going to do it, if they even do it, because it's still only under consideration. You've got to control the R. Yeah, and that was more confusion because they're not very clear explaining that to the public, the R0 idea, concept, how they rate the contagion level of a pathogen of the virus. So then they're not sending the kids back to school. They're not allowing the kids to go back to school. So that hasn't changed. That's going to be at least another couple of weeks, almost 3 weeks, coincidentally. So the 3 weeks has been kicked down the road yet again, another 3 weeks. Do you think in another 3 weeks' time they're going to make up some reason why it's going to be another 3 weeks and another 3? How many times do you want to hear that? It's only going to be 2 weeks, folks. Oh, it's 3 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks, folks. The end of that 3 weeks is, oh, we need to have another 3 weeks just to make sure we, control the R. And then we're here and it's another 3 weeks. You're naive to the point of just constantly believing this bullshit. And the pubs aren't allowed to open. Restaurants aren't allowed to open. That's under consideration. Maybe they might, Yeah, even with the kind of like social distancing idea, they're still saying no to the pubs and the restaurants and places like the hair salons. You can't go and get your hair cut. Doesn't bother me. I've argued for years barbers are the oldest conspiracy in the world, older than prostitution. But anyway, that's another digression. But yeah, Bojo said we're allowed to go and sit in the sun. Well, thanks, Mr. BJ. Funny that, isn't it? You know, the country's got somebody whose initials are BJ, so the country's being led by a BJ. Worst blowjob ever. Anyway, yeah, I've mentioned that right there. I'll put this in the side chat. I want to give a shout out to Aid Hardy for doing an interview with Dr. Iqbal Adil. It was John T. I did say I'd mention that earlier. John T. that shared the link with me the other day under one of the other videos. I'll post this in the chat. Hopefully that will show up. Yeah, so thanks to Aid Hardy for giving the guy a chance to speak and doing an interview with him. It is a couple of hours long. It looks like the link's gone in the chat. Looking at the YouTube page, yeah, cool. And there are there's a bit of weirdness with the audio here and there, but you can hear it okay. It's just it gets a bit weirdly crackly and stuff, almost as if like somebody's been trying to mess with the audio. But yeah, if you're interested in the kind of questions of like how the virus is transmitted, is there possibly any even any reality to the virus and the effects that it's causing, and questions about the test kits and things like that. He's a MD, a general practitioner, doctor in the UK, who is probably, as far as I know, anyway, I agree with Aid when he said this, he's probably the only or maybe the first whistleblowing doctor in the UK who's actually, been willing to come on the media and speak about this stuff directly. So please go and check that out. Give it a listen if you've got the time. Like I said, it is a couple of hours long, so work your way through it. Sorry, I was just looking at the chat again. Hello to everyone in the chat. I will come back and scroll through again in a bit. I can only scroll back so far, but hello to everyone in the chat. Thanks for joining in. So please check that link out if you're so inclined. And the other main one I want to mention now at this point, because it's relative to Bojo talking bullshit about how he's allowing us to go out in the sun. This was on the Crime Bodge channel. He put this up just, I think, either Thursday or Friday last week. It was only a few days ago. Talking about the coronavirus lockdown is unlawful and the fines issued are void. Please go and check his channel out. Taz did recommend his channel to me a while ago. He was asking me about it, and I said, I had been getting him confused with somebody else for ages. I thought it was somebody else completely. So yeah, but I went and had to listen to that when I saw it come up on the update on the upload stream, and he was making some really good points and giving people lots of information about the legal and lawful standing of a lot of the stuff that is being done. I'll just share this with you because he did include a graphic to try and explain simply for people what he was demonstrating, what was relevant. You see it's divided into England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and the instruction or advice or whatever that the government have been putting out, the guidelines, and whether it is or is not law or lawful. Maybe you could question the lawful part. I don't know. You'd have to ask him about that. But whether it's considered law, yeah, and he's divided it up to the main points, like the stay at home unless you have reasonable excuse to leave, law in all parts of the UK. but the reasonable excuses includes quite a lot of possibility. You know, obviously, like they said, you can go out and get necessities and medical supplies, exercising alone or with other members of your household. You know, there's a little list there, but there's quite a few options for you to be able to just go out and about and just say, oh yeah, I'm a pagan, therefore I'm worshipping nature. So nature is my church. So therefore I'm out and about in nature because I'm worshipping. Okay, yeah, that's lawful. I'm not just to be clear, I am not a pagan. There's a lot about paganism that I appreciate, but I am not a pagan. Something I want to mention about that later as well. Anyway, but it then gets into some of the other bits like limit exercise to once a day. In England, that's advice. In Wales, that's law. Scotland and Northern Ireland is advice. So I don't know why. Maybe it's something to do with the sheep in Wales. You're only allowed to go out and woody the sheep once a day. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Bojo is now saying you can go out and exercise as many times as you like. Now we're allowed to. Now the great leader has said you're allowed out to sit in the sun. Is sitting in the sun exercise? I think it is, but let's get semantic and pedantic about the words of the law. There's various other things on there. No gatherings of more than 2 people in a public place unless they're the same household. Law. Certain businesses, this is what I was on about earlier with people who work in construction and things like that. Most of those places were told to close. So the reason a lot of people ended up staying at home was because the place that they worked at had been told to shut. Not because they chose to, they were ordered to. Law, you are required to close your business down for this whatever specified length of time or unspecified length of time as it's revealing itself to be. But if you go and follow that link that I put in the side chat, that'll take you to Prime Brodge's channel, and under that video is a link to that graphic. So if you want to get a copy of that graphic for yourself, follow those links through. That graphic might need some slight revision or updating based on Bojo's new announcements. So I'm not certain on that. I think they're pretty much the same as they were anyway. So what's on that graphic is still applicable. Yeah, and that's He also makes some good points about the part where they're saying it's law. It's part of a sub act that would be considered, how did he put it, ultra vires, which means above and beyond the original law that it's supposed to be based on. It's basically too much power that's trying to be claimed in the way it's been written, so therefore it would be thrown out of court. But go and listen to him explaining it, please, because I wouldn't be doing it justice or doing it properly. And if you end up in a situation where the police are trying to fine you for some bullshit reason, like sitting on the park bench enjoying the sunshine, sitting in the sun, then you'll get good advice from him about how you could approach dealing with that situation. So that brings me to, where's my notes? This is related to the fear vaccine and the hopium element. May not seem it initially, but it is. I guarantee you. A lot of what we're starting to see now and hear, a lot of it is primarily hearing it. The audio is the main element, because I'm talking about people saying certain things. But you can find video evidence of this stuff. Now, I had got a link from TM Films that he'd put up over the weekend. But when I went, I'd already grabbed the link to the video. But when I went and checked through these links earlier this afternoon, the video's gone now. So I don't know if he might have had to take it down or whether it got censored by YouTube or something. But I don't think it's there on his channel anymore. This was a video that a woman had recorded in USA. I think it's in California. the other day I mentioned about Virginia being the state where they were going to start going into people's homes. It wasn't Virginia, I was wrong. California, where they're starting to try and introduce this emergency legislation claiming that they can come into your home and put you into quarantine if you're considered infected or possibly infected, suspected of being infected or whatever. But anyway, read the title of that video that TM had on his channel. I'm a district manager RN, and I know this is all fake. Yeah, RN as in registered nurse. I'm a district manager, registered nurse, and I know this is all fake. If the video is not still there, if he's not able to re-upload it for whatever reason or something, to give you a basic synopsis of it, and you might be able to find other copies of it elsewhere online, like BitChute or other platforms. It was a woman who, as she's claiming, is a district manager registered nurse, which means she manages lots of other nurses, working in USA, who is seeing through the fear bullshit and calling this out for what it is. But she records a little video where she's on a beach, obviously gone to the beach to enjoy the sunshine and be out in nature, and a few cops had turned up. More than one. A little gaggle of these police had turned up and started telling her that she had to do this, that, and the other, and asking for her details and whatever. And she's telling them, she's quite happy to chat with them and asks them, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And she asks to speak to the main guy in charge. I'm not sure if he's a sergeant or something like that, the main police who's supposedly in charge in that area. And he does come and chat with her, and they have a pleasant conversation, polite conversation. And she's telling him directly, I'm a registered nurse and this is all fake. This is bullshit. And he's doing his usual thing of trying to persuade her, like, no, you got to go along with the orders, love. You got to do what the orders are telling you to do. You're not allowed to be on the beach. You've got to leave. And the conversation goes on a little bit. And in the end, he turns around and directly says to her, well, I don't want to lose my job, so I'm doing what I'm told to do. Yeah, my job, basically saying my job is at risk if I don't enforce this order, even though I agree with you. So he basically agrees with her, but then says, I'm just doing my job, just doing my job. And this was just one example recently. Yeah, this is one example of how the order enforcers are resorting to the same illogical non-defense of, I'm just following orders. I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing what I was told. So it's like, hang on, mate. So if you're saying that, does that mean you know that it's wrong? For you to try and use that defense makes me think that you already realize, even if you can't admit it to yourself, you already realize that what you're doing is wrong. But you're doing it anyway because you're worried about losing your job. Another example, which when I was checking those links earlier, synchronistically and conveniently, because I was wondering about whether I should look for an example from the UK, because that one was from the USA, and lo and behold, Danny Shine put one up just this afternoon, which I thought was, as I say, good timing, synchronistic timing. You find this on his channel, a Social Experimentalist channel. And he put this up this afternoon, the title, How Does Staying at Home Save Lives? It's only a little short video, and he's doing his usual kind of thing. He's chatting to the public and chatting to police officers and asking a few questions. The main one being, can you please explain to me, how does staying at home save lives? And he asks these two coppers, male and female copper, that have just been telling a couple with a small child who were in the park, and there was literally no one else around apart from the two coppers and Danny, who's there filming it. No one else around but these two coppers had told this couple with their little infant child that they had to leave the park because the orders say you're not allowed to be standing around doing nothing, enjoying the sunshine. So Danny goes up and records it and chats to them. And again, they turn around and say, oh, well, we're just doing our job. We're just following orders. We're doing our job. The same bullshit excuse, the same lack of minerals, of balls to be able to turn around and go, oh, no, I know this is wrong. Am I that afraid that I'm going to go along with it just because I'm worried about, I'm afraid of what's going to happen later? Like, I'm going to get the sack, and then how do I earn a living? How do I survive, etc.? Potentially, possibly, depends on the situation and the individual. That could be a reality, that they are putting their own livelihoods at risk, yes. But when you look at the larger situation and the ramifications down the road as we're rapidly accelerating into this technocratic tyranny, do you think losing your job is really your biggest worry? Especially when they've already laid off a large amount of the workforce anyway. And a large amount of the workforce is now in receipt of some kind of benefit. And they've been pushing the idea of something like universal benefit payments, like universal credit here in the UK. So you worrying about losing your job, even though you know that they've already put in place this setup where they're going to pay you for the fact that you'd been told to not go to work, or if you're unemployed, you're going to be able to claim some kind of benefit. So you're not going to starve to death, more than likely. I know there's situations, especially here in the UK, the DWP, the Department of Work and Pensions, are a bunch of and they can mess up your life to that degree that you could end up with nothing and out on the street and all that kind of stuff. Yes, that's possible, but that's not the situation in general. So your likelihood of being completely destitute because you lose your job, not a high probability. So based on that low probability, you are willing to risk not only your own future, because now this thing is so present, this situation is so present now, that it's not just a matter of talking about your children's future or your children's children's future. It's your future as well, your near future and your long-term future. The rest of your life is more than likely going to be under house arrest, the way this situation is progressing. So you're more worried about that low probability of you being made completely destitute rather than the high probability of you perpetuating a situation that is leading to this technocratic tyranny. Is it more about you just like the sparkly stuff? You like the convenience and the consumer goodies that the wage packet helps you have? Please don't forget that you can't travel abroad. Well, possibly you could, depends what country you choose to go to, but a lot of the countries have closed their borders, even though here in the UK, Bojo's only just decided he's going to close the borders. And, you know, that's in a few weeks' time. At the end of the month, they're probably going to close the borders. But all the way through this situation, the borders have been wide open and people have been coming from all over the world into the UK. So that control the R, stop the spread, or again, inconsistencies, hypocrisies, bullshit to the public to keep them in fear. But so link removed community guidelines. RN, link of RN. Oh, the registered nurse. Yeah, I thought it might be something like that. It's on TM Films channel. Please go and check his channel out. He's always putting up good videos. I'd grab that one because it was particularly a good example of the police standing around saying, "We're just doing our job, love. We agree with you, but we've got to follow orders." But it's a shame if he's had to take it down. But like I said, if you use the title and search for it, you might be able to find it on other platforms. But yeah, people willing to trade the convenience of modern consumerist society, including things like going on holidays and buying consumer goods, the conveniences of modern technology and things like that, in exchange for a future of tyrannical dictatorship. I'm sorry, I'd rather take the risk of potentially being made destitute than have that future. I don't want a part of that future. That's disgusting, especially when you start really scraping away at the bullshit and starting to see the core foundational stuff that is being built upon that is leading towards this technocratic, tyrannical control system. But they haven't had the fear vaccine. Another video I'm going to stick a link in for that Jeff C put up on his Jeff Censored Encore channel a few days ago, and hopefully that one's still there as well. The way things are going, videos and channels are disappearing all the time. This is obviously relevant to the USA at the moment, but this is not something that's going to not be brought over here at some point. And to a degree, it's already in place here, thanks to that Disease Act of 1984. You can be forcibly quarantined if they think it's necessary. But this one, the title is HR 6666 in Canada, armed Gestapo now removing people from homes. It's on his Jeff Censored Encore channel because it's not his own, it's not a video of his own creation. It's a video he's mirrored from another source. He includes the source link in the info box, in the links underneath his video, etc. So if you want to follow it through to the source of the video, you can. But the point is, it's another example. This one's a bit longer. I'm glad that nothing really seriously, there's no like police brutality in that video or whatever, but it again makes the point. A couple living at home with doing their thing, and the police have come into their home to remove them because they're worried that they might be ill and they need to be taken to see a doctor to be tested to see if they've got the illness, the pathogen, the whatever. And towards the end of the video, after the situation has progressed to the point where the male in the household, the guy living in the household, has already been handcuffed and walked out the door, and they're chatting with the woman that's still there, and she's basically waiting for the same to be done to her. So she's chatting with the police officers that are in the house. And again, the police turn around and say, well, we're just following orders, love. We're just doing our job. We'll lose our jobs if we don't follow orders. So it's back to the same excuse, the same non-defense. It is not a defense to say, I was just following orders. Why did you kill all those babies? Oh, I was just following orders. It's not a defense. And that's just, the fact that the nurse one has been taken down is unfortunate, but that's just a couple of examples. I'm sure if you go looking around on YouTube, on the internet in general, you're going to find a lot of examples of that same thing happening. The reason Jeff had titled it as the HR 6666 is because recently in the USA, they introduced a new bill called HR 6666, and it's not the same one as the Bill Gates thing, which had the 666 in its patent number. This is something additional, since that patent was published. And this is a bill going through the American government at the moment. I don't know if it's been passed yet or what, but it's been introduced into the process. And it's called the Trace Act, and it's basically about the tracking and tracing, contact tracing idea that they want to persuade the public to adopt. They're using the word adopt, but adopt in its usual definition has an implication of free choice. But what they're trying to do is take away that choice and force you to make use of this contact tracing technology. It's surveillance technology. They're talking about insisting that all new tech, like cell phones and tablets, anything that operates on the network, on Wi-Fi in particular, will have it built in. It will be hard coded into the technology that they will have this contact tracing software running on it. So at some point in the not too distant future, if you want to have an up-to-date mobile phone, smartphone, you won't have any choice as to whether or not this contact tracing is in there or not. It's not a matter of you adopting to download the app by free will choice. No, it will be forced upon you if you want to have a mobile device. And if you're in a situation where maybe you need it for personal safety or you need it for work or something, then you haven't really got a lot of choice, have you? That's the social engineering manipulation. They adjust the environment such that you have no other choice. So they can claim that you've made the decision to do it by yourself, that you chose to buy that device. It's like, no, mate, I can't live in this world without having a smartphone because you fucking won't let me. Sorry, coughing a bit. But yeah, interesting as well that particular act was introduced into their parliamentary process. The when it's passed from Senate to whatever, and they vote on it and blah blah blah. It was introduced on May the 1st, which I know for a lot of Christians and certainly for a lot of people in the USA, there's a large Christian demographic in the USA. That's a major flag because they consider it a satanic holiday. I'm doing the satanic holiday in bunny ears because, and I don't want to digress for too long, so I've already gone over my usual hour. It's only called a satanic holiday according to Christians. So it's a modern interpretation. I know people say, oh, it's 2,000 years, mate. It's sort of, yeah. How long have people been on the planet? It's a hell of a lot more than 2,000 years, mate. So you calling it now satanic is just a rebranding. It's a relabeling of something. What was it called before you turned up and came up with the word satanic? Well, you actually borrowed, you appropriated the word from Arabic, from Aramaic, which was a shaitan, which means opposer. And Satan is not Lucifer. They are two separate things. But a lot of this kind of knowledge is deliberately confused so that they can use the hopium effect of a lot of the different denominations of so-called Christianity to manipulate people en masse. I am not a Christian, but in saying that, you should be able to comprehend that if I say I'm not a Christian, that also means I'm not a Satanist or a Luciferian. Because to be either of those things, Satanist or Luciferian, that means you have to believe in the Christian theology. I don't. There's a hell of a lot of things about Christianity that I appreciate, that I really think is good for us. And I think the example as given in the Bible of the story of the life of Jesus Christ, etc., is a really good thing. It can teach you a hell of a lot of good stuff. But that doesn't mean I'm going to turn around and say, I'm a Christian. because I'm not. Because there's a lot about, and in particular, certain denominations of Christianity that I find abhorrent. A lot of them are complete hypocrites. They don't live like Christ, but they walk around with this pompous, narcissistic attitude like their religion is the only one that has the ownership of truth. Bullshit. And it's a delusion that is sold to people through 501c mega church institutions that literally rape money off people. They rape the wealth from their sheep flock. Sorry, I could rant at length about this, but anyway, the main point is there's a lot of people out there banging on about how it was introduced on May the 1st, and that's a satanic holiday. So it's only a satanic holiday using Christian nomenclature, terminology. Beltane has been around for a hell of a lot longer than Christianity. And when it comes to it being a satanic celebration or holiday, that is because you're tracing it back to a lot of those blood magic, cult, ritualistic belief systems that had the idea that by sacrificing animals or other human beings that somehow it gave them power over shit, which again is just wrong. But that doesn't mean that that particular date, and remember as well, we're under the Gregorian calendar, and back in Jesus's time, it was the Julian calendar. So, you know, dates are a bit all over the place in that respect. But it's about the time of year. It's about the solar cycle. And it's about the reality that at this time of the year, the majority of the new births that spring brings to us each year as the seasons progress happens now. So Beltane was about the celebration of new life. And if you approach it from a paganistic point of view, paganism doesn't worship death. This is another misinterpretation deliberately sold to a lot of Christians. Paganism does not worship death. Yes, there are some what you could call denominations of paganism that again go towards that blood magic bullshit. But death is a part of life. Death is a part of this reality. You enjoy life because you know at some point you have to give it up and move on. You have to give up this physical experience. This physical body that you are enjoying eventually fades out and dies, and you move to whatever. Yeah, I'm not going to speculate that. It's another massive digression. But the point being, paganism doesn't worship death as if it's some magic god that's giving them power. They acknowledge that it's a part of life. It's a part of the process of your experience in this reality. It's not something to be afraid of. Pain and loss is, yeah, that's something that's worth fearing. Nobody wants pain and loss unless they're a bit twisted in the head. But the reality of your mortality is something that you really need to come to terms with. And your enjoyment of life would be meaningless if you didn't have that acknowledgement of the reality of your mortality. Part of the misguided bullshit of this modern technocratic Babylon that they're trying to build is they are pursuing immortality. And if you become immortal, life will become meaningless to you, completely meaningless to you, because you will never have any loss of it. So it become worthless. It will become less than nothing. The reason life has value is because you know you have that end point, mortality. So please don't obsess on the fact that it was, a satanic holiday. It's like, yes, I think they did for occultic reasons, because that's a lot of the twisting that they do, that they want to keep everything in this physical density, and they want to try and become gods unto themselves and defy the true God, the Godhead, whatever you want to call it. That is why it gets labeled in Christian theocracy as Satanism, because it is in opposition to the Godhead that gave you this life with an end date. That's what you've been given. Yeah, the fact that you can experience and enjoy this life, but the enjoyment comes from the knowledge that at some point it will end. So therefore, you value it more. If there wasn't that end point, you wouldn't value it. So, in terms of the police claiming that we're just doing our job, mate, bullshit. Yeah, that's that. I'm trying to find that picture again, just to share it one more time. Keeping the public in fear so they can use the fear to manipulate you to go along with what they are doing, so that you are so afraid that you're going to be without, that you're going to lose all your shiny trinkets, that you'll just carry on doing your job. I'm just doing my job, mate, because otherwise I might lose my job. So you're afraid of being destitute, basically. You're afraid of having to try and survive outside of the system. So they're using fear to make you follow orders. So what you're going to do when they give you that order to start dragging people off, putting them on wagons and taking them off to some camp somewhere where you don't know what happens to them next, are you going to follow that order? Or you're going to turn around and say, no, this line and no further. I won't enforce that bullshit. I can see it for the bullshit that it is, that it's unlawful, it's immoral. So I'll say, no. Again, I could rant about this stuff for many hours, and I've already done far too much as it is. Sorry, Peter, I may just sit there waiting for ages. Maybe that's why nobody else wants to join, because it's just me waffling for over an hour.
No, it's fine. I'm here listening away. Yeah, it's. I was going to say testing, but no, that's just taking the piss, isn't it? Sorry.
They are
Yeah.
testing us.
No.
I think some of the. I think it was Max Egan mentioning this earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I agree with him on this. I think some of the things they've been putting in the media, like the police brutality kind of stuff, they want the public to react violently. And I know we've spoken about this many times in the past.
Yeah.
Maybe they're deliberately showing us this level of order follower idiocy because they want people to react violently, because then that's a further justification to crack down on us all, keep us all locked in our homes.
Yeah, I do think that myself. And there was an opportunity. I was thinking that today when I was watching the second David Icke interview, where he was asked the question about why the 5G towers, or did he, I can't remember what the question exactly, how it was phrased, but it was an opportunity for him to say, there shouldn't be anybody doing any acts of violence, I would have thought, or nothing like that. It's got to be it's a revolution of the mind. It's a wake up call for us. It's not about going out there and shaking our fists at these people, because they're all under a spell as well. It shouldn't be about that. So I thought that was a missed opportunity there, really. And then he got lambasted and kicked off all the, networks, all the platforms. So I was just thinking that. I thought, because there are opportunities. We've seen it in the past with people who, and there wasn't the power of the edit with this interview. There was the opportunity to come back and say something in that case. But again, is it why be violent? Where is it going to get us? Like I say, just gets us back to where we were, and if anything, with more, like you say, more tyrannical oppression and all the rest of it on top of us. What they're trying to already do, I think, with this stuff. We're forgetting we are individual, like you were mentioning. Individuals. We are one, but we're individual. How does that work then? But it's that's the thing, the uniqueness of you, and that's the thing that people forget. All the good stuff about us, and the fear stuff is just with us from birth, I think. As soon as you pop out, especially if you've been born the last 60, 50 years it's been bombardment. It's just moving through the progressional decades to where we are now with it, which is like full on.
And if you give birth in the modern style of lying on your, I'm saying I'm a male, I'm not going to be giving birth, but for women giving birth, if you're lying on your back on a hospital bed, that's probably one of the worst ways to do it. So you're putting more stress on your own body, which affects the child as it's being born. So it's like they deliberately switched. I can't remember the story. Some prince who wanted to be able to watch his wife giving birth or some shit like that. But it's putting more stress on the child. It's a traumatic experience. So it's like the very first experience of fear. You're leaving that perfect little environment in the womb where everything's provided for you and everything's protected and lovely and warm and cozy. And then you get forced out this tiny little hole. So what's going on? And then you got this guy in a mask and gown and whatever slapping you on the ass. It's, first ever experience of trauma.
And then come the vaccines, of course. They get a good few of them straight after birth. Yeah.
And now the introduction of the changes in the schools, like I only mentioned it a little bit. I was watching Scott, that guy Scott Webb, put up a little video about. I think he was showing an article from the Mirror, I think it was, but he's talking about these new requirements that if they're going to reopen the schools and start sending the students back, then the schools have to follow these requirements, like spraying them down with detergent, basically, and making them wear masks and all this shit. Yeah, traumatizing children. You try and put yourself in a child's point of view of going to this place where you're being treated like you are the danger, you are infectious, you are emanating this thing of death, and you're introducing that concept of death and fear of death into children that young. There's going to be a generation, if people send their kids back to school, there's going to be a generation of traumatized children. They're going to develop OCD and germophobia and all kinds of shit.
Yeah, and they've even said they're not going to be fining parents if they don't send their kids back. Isn't that nice of them?
That as well, though. That sort of, you talk about the carrot and the stick. Which is the carrot, which is the stick? The stick is the fear of that kind of traumatizing and stigmatizing environment of the schools that they're suggesting. And then the carrot is, oh, well, if you educate online, if we have virtual online classrooms, then you can keep your child at home with you, but you still have to make them log in and register, and we'll have a, roll call and whatever to make sure you're there and blah, blah, blah. Carrot and stick, carrot and stick. Yeah, remain indoors and be online virtually doing your education.
Yeah, and then just go out to work and then come home if you have a job.
Yeah, that was good, wasn't it? Go to work, but then come straight home.
So, and go out for a little walk around where you live, but not much further than that. And you're not allowed to travel over the border from England to Wales and all this stuff. It's,
It's just like the gulags. You're brought out of your barracks, taken to the place of work, hard labour, breaking rocks or whatever, and then when your day's over, you take them back to the barrack room and put back in chains and whatever. Just like a gulag, isn't it? Welcome to the new fascism. Well, I was ranting earlier. It's more than fascism.
Well,
new dystopia.
I was going to say this dystopian madness, and the fact that you were saying before about how people are being almost pick a side time, left or right, left or right paradigm. Where do you want to go? Whilst they're just bashing the hell out of you in the middle. It's crazy. And the testing, they love testing us. The testing must be tested. Yeah. Everyone has to be tested or sprayed or something.
What is they testing for?
I don't know. There is no test for this, as far as I'm aware. As far as what I've seen around, there's just a test for genetic material within your biology, within your blood or whatever, saliva or whatever.
They can test for coronavirus.
Yeah.
The coronavirus is something that I guarantee all of us have in us anyway.
Exactly.
Maybe a newborn infant might not have coronavirus in them until they've been exposed and developed immunity, etc. But everybody else, you've already got it.
And these
And
stories
I
like
think
forced testing are quite worrying, aren't they? When you see them come out and how they're taking people off. And obviously, someone's ratted on them, a neighbour or something. Yeah, that's terrible. What's going on with that as well? That's another, thing we've got to stop trying to do. We're actually begging for the lockdowns and the enslavement. It's almost some people are happy. They should increase the fines and things. Some people I've heard say.
the brown
You know,
shirts are out in
wow,
force.
seems
Don't
that
know what
way.
If you don't know what the brown shirts are, please go and do a little research and learn a bit of history. But you saying that about that kind of thing reminds me I was going to mention this under last week's video where I was sort of ranting about the David Icke interview on London Real and all that lot and how they
Yeah,
were doing their kind of PR trickery shit. And lo and behold, an account that turns up every so often to drop sarky comments or derogatory comments or whatever turned up yesterday, last night, I think it must have been. And I was looking at it earlier and I was thinking, okay, mate, yeah, I'll make sure to mention this because this character called Daniel Hayes account name, whether it's a genuine account or a sock account or whatever, yeah, it could be, but it doesn't really matter, yeah. But he wants you all to know that I'm in receipt of benefits, yeah. And I've never disguised that fact. I've mentioned it multiple times over the years. We talked about it, before about that kind of stuff. But he's just put in, interesting to hear your views on business models. What business are you working in again? You do work, don't you? Or does Nanny send you a check each week for doing fuck all? So the brown shirts, yeah. I know it was last week, so we weren't exactly talking about the current updates from Bojo's little announcements and whatever. But we're talking about how there is this emerging technocratic dystopia where people are saying, oh, just following orders, mate, And his main concern is that I'm on benefits and the world needs to know, he's posting in a public forum environment, posting publicly on a YouTube video. You need to know, everyone, that I'm in receipt of benefits, yeah? But what I was saying earlier about that, at what point do you say no? At what point do you look at that probability of being made destitute and compare it to the risk of the probability of what's going to happen if you go along with the bullshit? And his primary concern is that I'm not working. That's what he cares about, yeah? He's more concerned about whether I'm working or not what's going to happen in the near future if people keep following along with this bullshit and don't turn around and say no. That's brown shirt thinking. That's the I was going to say fascistic, but again, it's back to that left-right kind of bullshit. Yeah, but that's that kind of mentality that perpetuates the enforcement hierarchy. The order followers are the ones that perpetuate this hierarchy. Because I can guarantee you, if it came to a punch-up between most people and Bill Gates would lose. Yeah. So for those people that have that kind of thinking of, the only way to resolve this is, fisticuffs, the only thing that prevents Bill Gates getting a severe kicking is the enforcer order followers who stand in that middle tier. There are really only 3 tiers to that hierarchy. Yeah, those who think they're in control of everything, the enforcers, and then the rest of us. So he's got that mindset of an enforcer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'll share this other picture. And I know I've shared this multiple times over the years as well to kind of make this point before. And this is a quote from Hermann Goering. And this was recorded during his interviews at the Nuremberg trials. Quote, naturally, the common people don't want war. Remember, we are supposedly in a war with an invisible enemy. Anyway, so I'll carry on with the quote. Most people don't want war, but after all, it is the leaders of a country who determine the policy, and it is always a simple matter to drag people along, whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. This is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in every country. End quote. And please note how he says fascist dictatorship or communist dictatorship. So he clearly states what I was talking about earlier. There is no difference between the two. You may be, supposedly subscribing to different ideologies, one on the left, one on the right, but they both operate through the same methodologies. They are both dictatorships. They are enforced through force of arms, threat of incarceration, etc. So,
well, yeah, and they're still pulling that number now, aren't they? Like you say. It's
doing the same thing now and encouraging members of the public to snitch on each other, Stasi State style, report your neighbours for being in his garden for more than an hour and shit like that. Making people so terrified that when you're walking down the road, if you get an inch within that 6 foot distance of them, they start having a freak out at you and start accusing you of being a murderer, and they're calling for the police to come and do you. And that's brown shirt mentality thinking. You are adopting the enforcer role. You have taken on board the mind programming, the brainwashing of people like Bill Gates, those people who think they're in control, and you are the one that is causing that control, in parentheses, in bunny ears. You are the one causing that control to happen. Because Bill Gates isn't going to come round my house and say, "Hey, Cooker, you shouldn't have been out today. You're a naughty boy. I'm going to have to beat you." Because he knows he'd get a kicking.
Yeah, and the Lord Kitchener quote at the beginning is brilliant. And your country needs you in fear. Definitely, that's exactly what it is, isn't it? How they get away with it, keep you in that state. But there is a choice. Don't be in fear. What's opposite of fear? Love.
From fear comes courage. Courage to say no. Courage to see the fear as being false evidence appearing real. If it's a genuine fear, then you can then use that energy to deal with that genuine danger. But most of what they are subjecting the public to is false evidence appearing real.
And that hopium is I like that. The hope, the false hope. I think everyone got a little bit carried away, thought there was maybe a bit more would be given, and it turns out that nothing has been given at all. We're still where we were, really, or a little bit more outside if you want to stay outside a little bit longer, but as long as it's near to your home.
But Bojo himself, the BJ, told me I can sit in the sun. Thank you, great leader.
Yes, get some photons, is it, or whatever, some rays, and
Thank you for giving me permission to enjoy this experience called life, which was given to me not by you.
Yeah, and this is it. People just need to start thinking, and those quotes are great. Those the first quote, was it Thomas Aquinas, or whatever you pronounce that?
Aquinas.
Aquinas.
I don't know. More of a kind of Latinized.
And that color thing, the green's interesting. When you mentioned green, it made me think of chakras, because green's the middle color, isn't it? The heart.
Yeah.
So
you look at the chakra colors and they follow the light spectrum. That's exactly why they've been designated that fashion. Because the ancients knew full well that a lot of what we experience is based on that electromagnetic frequency structure.
Yeah.
So things go from, through that spectrum, through that range of coloration.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's where we need to be working on ourselves to a certain degree in that area. Yeah, but that's for another talk. As you say, we can go off on these
in that central area, your core chakra It's where your heart is. Your heart is your generator, not just for pumping blood around your body. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field. Your heart now, it's been proven your heart has neural cells in it. So your heart basically has little bits of brain cells in it. So that gives you your heart mind connection. And they've now also been showing that your gut has neural cells in it as well. So that's your full brain connection. You've actually got 3 brains that are supposed to be working in balance. Your heart is your inner self, true knowledge. Your mind is your rationalizing computer, basically, for want of a better metaphor. But it's your number cruncher where you take probabilities and compare them to each other so you can make a plan of action. And your gut is your connection to your environment, because your gut includes not only what you ingest, but also what's going into your lungs. So the sense of smell, smell is the strongest of the 5 senses. It's key to a lot of what we experience in this environment. Also, as well, don't forget the pineal gland in the brain, which acts as your electromagnetic field sensor. Yeah, you put all those things together, and remember that brain processing is a biochemical electrical process. The thing that's jumping between the neurons in your brain is little electrical charges that are biochemically created. So your thinking is an electrical process. So your heart's creating an EM field, and your thinking is an electrical process, and your gut and other senses are feeling the other fields around you. You are sensitive to all that other EM activity around you. So yeah, there's a good reason why the central chakra is green, because it's that balanced center of the light spectrum.
Yes.
Sorry,
I'm getting distracted reading the chat as well. Yeah, sorry.
Big download.
Yes, big one. But what else? I'd made some other little notes as well, because I was just talking about Beltane. Didn't really mention, and last week I even forgot what month it was under lockdown. I introduced the reality chat last week, I think, as the 6th of April. And it was the 6th of May. Yeah. And I actually put the 6th of April on it. I had to go in and actually edit it out and change it back to May. So I was completely...
That was that lockdown period, mate. You lost a month, didn't you?
Yeah, it's like
you were in the wilderness.
But we've had Beltane. We've had the the celebration of life and nature and Mother Earth and all the good stuff.
I know I was having a bit of a rant about the whole Christian and pagan thing and whatever, but I do think there is very definite occultic reasons why they introduced that bill on that day.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Something passed me by. He's busy and obviously doing other stuff as well.
A lot of the American public are unaware of it as well. I only know about it because some other video makers like Jeff has mentioned it. Otherwise, I would have been unaware of it as well.
Yeah, they don't like to publicise them too much, do they? Like lots of things. I was reminding people of the bail-in today. The bail-in. People forget there's a bail-in. It's a bail-in. What's a bail-in? It's like if the banks go under, they're taking all your cash, basically. Yeah. They'll use it to prop up their debt or whatever it is that they've built up, which we sure will be massive. But that's the possibility. The economic situation that is to come when people go out and start spending money, and the things as they ease back in, probably be in sometime in the I said this and I'm probably right, autumn equinox time. It'll be probably what you would see is some sort of semblance of things back to what maybe you could say, well, okay, you can do what you want now, but you've still got to do the masking. I mean, if we I get into this on Wednesday, but yeah, go on. Yeah,
I'm optimistic. Yeah, I hope that we'll have a bit more, allowed freedom. But I'm more inclined to think that the higher probability is that the summer months will be when they allow things to basically to kind of like spread again. And what will happen as we're going into the autumn is we'll have the second wave. And part of that second wave will not just be people getting ill and allegedly dying and blah blah blah, but it'll be a lot about this kind of stuff, like people putting out information, people talking out or saying no, speaking out against the craziness and the bullshit and whatever, the infodemic. And probably what we're going to get hit with is there'll be some spikes in the numbers that they'll claim, the way they put out the death toll every fucking day. There'll be some little spikes in that, and they'll jump on it and go, oh, second waves have come back because we allowed you out of your homes. Oh, that means we've got to lock down again, lock down. I might be just being a bit overly cynical or a bit pessimistic with that, but they've already started seeding that idea. With like the stuff they've been saying about the schools. They say, oh, we've got to be careful. If we let you all out too soon, it will cause a second wave. So,
whilst they dismantle the whole economy,
yeah,
which they've done pretty much, well, not dismantled in time, but it's going that way. I mean, are things going to come back the way they are? No. How much damage is done, we don't really know, but an awful lot. And how is that going to go forward with when people do start spending money and the inflation starts to creep up all of a sudden? And then you've got your mortgage, then you've got your housing problem, then you've got, all that, it all has an effect. So, and we've seen it before. We see it in the 80s, which is nothing compared to what I suppose is going to happen in this event. Because in the 80s, it wasn't anything like we've had now.
What's the other main solar cycle related celebration that happens around that time? I mean, you mentioned the autumn equinox.
Around that time, I'll have to
Harvest festival.
Harvest, and yeah.
What happens when you have a harvest? You bring in the sheaves. Yeah, and a lot of this stuff that they've been pumping out is deliberately scripted to appeal to the Christian theological point of view on a lot of matters. Yeah. So I can see it being couched and scripted deliberately to go along with those kind of celebrations. So about the time when the harvest festival is due, there'll be another outbreak or spike and the second wave, and that will be them harvesting. Yeah, because that's a lot of what's been going on as well. They've harvested the energy of the middle class. When you consider that, for example, debt is energy owed. So like you mentioned the bail-ins earlier, yeah? What they're basically doing is putting a lot of the population, the vast majority of the population, into some kind of debt. That debt is basically you selling your future, because you're saying, like, I owe you this financial debt. That financial debt represents a certain amount of energy from me, either going to work or collecting resources or doing something to generate the energy to pay for that thing. Yeah, because each little fiat note represents like a battery. It represents a chunk of energy. So they've been harvesting the energy of the middle classes. They've been cropping the bounty that they have allowed to grow over the last couple of decades, since the 90s, certainly, when greed is great, greed is good, all that shit in the 90s.
Yeah.
They allowed the middle class to inflate and inflate and inflate. And all of that inflation was based on debt in their money magic system. Now they're calling in that debt. So that big fat inflated middle class of all the people who had a higher living standard and thought life's good because look at all the stuff we got, look at how comfortable we are. All of that is being sucked in now, and all of the energy is going up the pyramid. So the top half of the pyramid is shooting off like a rocket in distance from everybody else, which is why we're going to end up we're near enough, very close to it now. If you've got enough wealth and connections, you can buy yourself a designer baby. Even though supposedly the CRISPR engineering of children is banned, allegedly, there's places you can go where you can have that shit done. You can commercially buy a cloned pet. Did your pet die recently? Oh, well, we can gather some material from the dead animal and we can clone your pet for you. You can have your pet back again. So they're already selling it for pets. And a lot of those people consider us to be their pets. They don't see us as being human, they see us as being creatures. And that's encoded into their legalese language bullshit. We are creatures as far as they're concerned, so they can treat us as less than living beings like they consider themselves. So if you've got enough wealth and power, you can already pay for that kind of shit. So the existence of those super wealthy so-called elites, the distance between us and them is rapidly growing. And at some point, it's going to get to a stage where it is going to be like the pharaohs to the mass of the poor labouring public. They're going to seem to have magical abilities compared to us because they've got access to technology that is just beyond our comprehension, because we were never told that we had that kind of shit. We didn't know you could have design a baby that was immune to all these congenital illnesses and blah, blah, blah. But they could already buy one. They can already pay for it to be done. So at some point, not too far in the future, especially when they start introducing the biotech and stuff like that. Anyway, that's, I could rant about that shit.
I just think that attack on the middle classes, like you said, it's been going on for quite a while. So
they planned it.
That now is coming to the real game changer now. And the entire thing is whether people will like I say, wake up to this, like 9/11 woke people up, and now this will have a similar, should have the same effect, but on a much grander scale.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think that preceded that idea of the infodemic. That you've had too much to think, haven't you? Like the classic sort of meme picture of the policeman going, "You've had too much to drink," but instead they changed it to "too much to think." You've had too much to think, haven't you? You've been thinking independently. We can't have that.
That thinking's not so good. Don't be thinking.
And one of the things that's well known in psychology is that if you put somebody into fear, if you put them in fear, it derails their rational thinking, their logical thinking processes. Because I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, and Steve mentioned it on his show. That kind of amygdala hijack effect. You push somebody into a state of fear, and their drive, their thinking process reduces into their lower core drives, into that lower lizard brain part of the central cortex. So their reactions and whatever are more autonomic, less processing power. So they're less able to go, hang on, what order are you telling me to do? I can see that that's bullshit, mate, so I'm not going to do it. They lose that. They just they jump whenever they're told to jump, like a Pavlovian dog, because they're just too afraid to not do what they're being told to do.
And fear also lowers your immune system, which obviously makes you unwell. So
amplifies stress.
It's as simple as that, really.
Cortisol level, and so I think they planned this whole inflation of the middle classes so that then they could have a stock of energy. It's like the pharaohs getting everybody to put all their harvest into the one storehouse, and everybody thinks, oh yeah, great, we're all going to be able to have loads of food this winter because look, we've got all this grain stored up in the grain house. And then the pharaoh puts his enforcers at the door to guard it and says nobody else is allowed in except the pharaoh and his entourage. So only the pharaoh gets to eat all that grain stored, nobody else. You can all starve to death, but you brought it in for me.
Yeah, but there is a choice. There is a choice.
Yes, there is the choice. There is still the opportunity to say no.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one more quick shout out, just because it's relevant in this sense, like Derek Bros. Sorry, I was trying to remember his name. And Derek Bros, theconsciousresistance.com, and he put up a video a few days ago about, are you prepared to give up your smart technology to help not outright derail this situation, but certainly to slow it down and potentially change the direction that we're heading? Because that is a high probability that that's what you're going to need to do. part of the entrapment that they've been building up in this situation is people's reliance on the smart tech, the interlinked stuff, the internet of things, and I don't want to mention it, the fifth letter and the seventh letter, yeah, of the English alphabet. Put the fifth letter and the seventh letter together, you'll know what I'm referring to. They don't want people to, well, as in the number 5 and the seventh letter, sorry. Yeah, getting him back to front with alphanumeric. That process is changing the way society operates such that you won't be able to, for example, go in a supermarket to buy food unless you have the smart device which has the app built into it that says whether or not you have the illness and if anyone around you has the illness and whether you're allowed out of your own home. And of course, then as well, you've got the electronic currency in there so you can actually buy the food produce in the supermarket. So are you willing to give up that smart technology? Because if you are, that will help redirect this situation and will give you much greater opportunity to give them the finger and actually get power back for yourself.
Yeah, you could always grow your own food and eat it.
Yeah.
That's an option.
Yeah.
There's lots of things we could be doing, or doing.
Good.
We're already doing, some of us, we're all doing this. We're all getting into this, or I'm sure people I've spoke to are getting more, over the years anyway, certainly more self-sufficient, more on it and more thinking in that way and more looking at alternatives, just everyday life, everyday living, where you can, live better and, not have the, the corporate chemical crap too much. You can't get away from it entirely, but at least you're working towards that for your kids' future and future, basically, not the one that they want, the one that we want, a good one, not an evil one. No, it's like, so we don't want that shit. It's too invasive. It's like, there's nothing I want you to know. Go away. That's about it, really. We're all good people. Let's get on with our lives. It's
false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, but no, there's too many sort of, like I say, it's all that paranoia, suspicious, mixed in with narcissism and a lot of ego. And that's where we, seem to have a lot of problems.
I didn't grab any links or whatever as examples of this, but they're out there if people want to go and look for them. But in the past couple of weeks or more, there's been a lot more great examples of exactly that. Most of what I've seen has come out of the USA. It might just be simply because of the media coverage of things like that. But a lot of the farmers in the USA, because the supply chain had been broken by the restrictions that have been put in most states, the food supply chain, the farmers couldn't get the food from the field to the supermarkets to sell to people. So basically, they were told to plough over the fields, to destroy their own produce, etc., to slaughter chickens and other animals, all that stuff. But there's been more examples in the last couple of weeks of the farmers cooperating with the local community and basically saying, well, if people want to just come to the farm and buy it directly from us, you can buy it directly from us. Fuck the middleman in between.
Yeah.
So that opportunity has actually been made more available to people thanks to the situation. Because for a lot of, I say us because I'm in a similar kind of position myself, for a lot of us, it's been made just part of the daily life that where do you get your food from? You go to the supermarket or the shop on the high street or whatever, and you buy it from there. So where do they get it from? They get it from the supply chain that goes all the way back to the farm. So if you can cut out that middleman, and there are like farm traders around here that you can go to, you go straight to the farmer and get it straight from them. That's supporting your own local community because you're supporting the businesses that actually feed your own community. Things like that. So there's a lot of good examples of stuff like that now starting to come out. And there's, more, like I say, more opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah.
More people, like you mentioned earlier, growing their own stuff for themselves.
Yeah. Like I say, learning to cook again. Some people have Probably they haven't died because McDonald's and Burger King and all those awful bloody places have been closed, which I actually thought was good. But like, that's the only thing. The junk food one. I mean, the seagulls were lost, around here. They didn't know what to do for about a week. They thought, wow, but they managed to find some food where they should find it, which is in the sea or on the shore, or whatever,
Bag of chips floating on the sea.
Yeah.
They reopened the KFC recently as well, didn't they? And I saw some people uploading clips of like the queue of traffic waiting to get into their chicken. It's man.
It's just no stopping it, is there? It's like that addiction's still there, It's like,
the chemicals they put in the coating. You are literally getting chemically addicted to that shit. Same as McDonald's. They did the same probably still do the same now. They claim they've cleaned up their food. Bullshit.
No, it's horrible. Avoid it. But we'll see. There might be some drop in customs when they finally realise it. Actually, home cooked food is better than that shite. Yeah.
They'll probably introduce a part of the lockdown recommendation that you have to buy your food from certain places. Because otherwise the economy will collapse. The economy that they've deliberately put into a situation to force it to collapse in certain areas, so that it forces the switch over to the new virtualized digital world. Anyway.
Sorry, I've just realised it's gone 10 o'clock now.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Right? We're just
sorry.
The 10 p.m., the 2200 hours. So I'm just gonna.
Thanks, Cookie. Anyway, cheers. Thank you.
Thanks for joining in, right?
And to everyone else in the chat, cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for everyone in the chat. I'll do a really quick scroll down. I know I'm probably going to miss people out that were in the chat earlier because this chat box will only scroll back so far. Crow Magnon, hello. Thanks for joining in. And I'm sure I saw Robbie in there earlier. Hello, Robbie. I hope you're all right. And Lotsum Tatro, hello. And Unseen Recordings, hello. Sonia White, hello. Hive Mind Concussion, hello. Yeah, there's a fair bit of that going on at the moment. Quickly scrolling. The Rebel, hello. And P. Murph, hello, mate. Hope you're well. And Benno, that's Dr. Rock, hello, mate. And Shield Destroyer, hello. And Mascara Snake, hello. Thanks to everyone for joining in the chat. The chat is there for you to participate in if you choose to, as long as you have some decorum. I'm not saying you're not allowed to swear or anything, but as long as you're not abusing each other or trying to abuse us or things like that, then you can chat about whatever you want. Relax. Hello. Shows like this also create fear, so it's all the same game. Ignorance is strength, you sock account coward.
Oh dear.
Yeah, hide behind your sock accounts. Keep making up new ones all the time so you can come and just post shit. See through you. Ridiculizer, hello mate, hope you're alright. Making music, thank you. Music is good. Music is great. Everything is music. It's all frequency and vibration. And Simon West, hello, thanks for joining in. And So Safe, hello. And CMB, hello. And I know I said hello to you guys. Who's that's just joined? It's Tazzy. Well, I'm going to be clicking the button in just a sec. So thanks again, folks. Don't believe the bullshit. Certainly don't believe the bullshit about this being fear-mongering. They want you to be ignorant. They want you to not think for yourselves. They want you to stay afraid.
Yeah.
Because the fear is what they're using to manipulate you. So develop some courage. As Bruce, I always do that. I always point over the wrong shoulder because I'm looking at like a fucking mirrored reflection. as Brucey said a few decades ago, courage does not exist in the absence of fear. Develop some minerals. Yeah, they're throwing fear at you constantly, so you can't just ignore and go, oh, no fear, live in my little bubble, pretend everything's great. No, learn some courage, develop some courage to see through the fear and the bullshit that it is, because otherwise they'll just keep doing it to you. Anyway, I'm being too silly now, sorry. Thanks again, folks. We'll be back on Wednesday night for the reality chat on the reality chat channel, digging some of the news articles and stuff like that. And please check out Steve Tagoose for the mystery show on his channel, Steve Tagoose channel, 8 p.m. Thursday night. And yeah, I'll leave it at that because otherwise I'll go on and on forever. Thanks again, folks.
Thank you.
Cheers. Click the button.